Welcome to Barbells and Motherhood. I'm your host, Julianne Bali, owner of Motherhood Barbell. I'm a pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coach, CrossFit Level 1, and mom of 3. On this podcast, we discuss all things pre- and postnatal exercise, bust common myths such as don't lift over 20 pounds, educate about core and pelvic health, and explore all facets of motherhood. If you're a pregnant or postpartum mom that likes to throw around barbells, want to learn more about your pelvic floor and core, and looking for real research-based exercise guidance in any season of motherhood, this podcast is for you. All right, welcome to another episode of Barbells and Motherhood. I'm extremely excited today to have Danyell Russell with me, who is my personal pelvic floor therapist, and she's going to share some of her background with us today, as well as diving more into pelvic health and fitness as well. So Danyell, go ahead and give us who you are and what you do and what your business is.
Yeah, so I am Dr. Danyell Russell, and I am a physical therapist. I specialize in pelvic health as well as orthopedics, with a special interest in fitness during pregnancy and postpartum, and also CrossFit athletes. I own Strong Foundation Physical Therapy, and essentially I go to my clients in their home for the most part. I am in a clinic space one day a week. Today, I am actually in the space right now. But yeah, so on Wednesdays, I'm in a clinic space in Louisville, but mostly I go to my clients in their home and I basically bring the clinic to them. I have my treatment table that I bring. I have adjustable dumbbells I can bring. I even can throw my barbell in the back of my car if I need to. But basically the idea is that I'm bringing the clinic to you so you can not have to go somewhere to do your physical therapy.
That is so what drew me to you is that you are mobile. And we, for those who are listening that don't know, we are based in North Texas. And so Louisville is a part of North Texas. And,
yes.
and that's where she's on with their Wednesdays, but then she serves all over DFW. And originally, well, thank you for your introduction, by the way. I'm so happy that you were here. Originally, you and I connected on Instagram, and I don't remember who followed who first, but somehow we ended up connecting because I have a habit of following every single possible pelvic floor therapist on Instagram that I can find.
Yes, I love it.
And then yours was one of the ones, I think like someone shared something. I don't remember how it happened. But we were in the DMs and you were like, we should have lunch. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a dream come true. Because as a pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coach, like our whole goal is to have collaboration with other providers. And your goal too, like that's a huge goal for a PT to be able to have a well-rounded network of people that you can help your clients find and collaborate with. And so I was so excited when you asked me to go to lunch and we met up, and I was very pregnant at the time.
Yes, you were.
And I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing with my business right now, but I'm really excited to meet with you. And then it just like started this awesome friendship online. And then also, obviously I am your client as you're my therapist. And so I am so grateful for Danyell. She does incredible work. Like she said, she does work with CrossFit athletes. And that is a big deal to me because I do CrossFit. And I needed somebody that would get me and understand my world. And that is what Danyell understands. So I want to get back to that in a little bit. But before we get to that point, let's talk about how you decided ultimately to end up in the pelvic world as your specialty.
Yeah. So, I mean, I initially was in orthopedics. That's what I started off doing. Actually, in PT school, I thought I wanted to be a pediatric physical therapist. And then I realized very quickly that that was not really what I wanted to do. I started off in orthopedics, and then I whenever I was pregnant with my first baby, I kind of had like this inkling that maybe pelvic health was something that I might want to do. But then I was like, do I really want to stare at vulvas all day? And was not quite ready to commit to that. And so did not do it initially, but then between being pregnant with my first and being pregnant with my second, I joined CrossFit and I fell in love with doing CrossFit and all of those fun things that we do in CrossFit. And then I got pregnant with my second baby, and I knew that I wanted to continue to exercise. But honestly, I didn't know exactly what I should be doing at that point. So I found, I had already been taking some courses through the Institute of Clinical Excellence, and they were just coming out with their pregnant and postpartum athlete course. And I was so pumped because I jumped on that immediately. And so I fell in love with working with pregnant and postpartum athletes and decided at that point that I really needed to go ahead and become a pelvic floor PT, because if I wanted to work with these people to the utmost, then I needed to be able to do internal work as well. So I believe that my little one was like 6 weeks old whenever I did my first internal pelvic floor course. And yeah, the rest is history. I fell in love with it. And pregnant athletes, postpartum athletes are my absolute favorite people to work with. So
That is awesome. And I imagine that you had a very similar experience that a lot of us have had of learning about pelvic health for the first time. And you're like, hold on, nobody told me about this and this and this. Is that
yeah,
an experience that you had during all of that time in
I mean,
gaining education?
yeah, I mean, it's even crazy. Like I'm a doctor of physical therapy. I went through PT school. We had anatomy, we had physiology. I think that we talked about the pelvic floor, like maybe like it was like a mention. We may have mentioned the pelvic floor, but we certainly did not have any courses related to it. And so I knew that pelvic floor PT was a thing in PT school, but I really didn't know a whole lot about it. And then when I got pregnant with my first, I was like, well, this is definitely something I want to do postpartum. Um, and then learning more about it, I was like, oh my gosh, like I could have been doing pelvic PT during my pregnancy. I could have been doing this, like all of these things to prepare for my pregnancy. And so that's now, like that's what I'm trying to get across to people, is that you don't have to wait until you're already in pain or you're already leaking pee to go ahead and go see a pelvic floor PT and kind of get ahead of those things. A lot of the things that we see in pelvic health are things that we can mitigate or prevent, maybe not fully prevent, but at least decrease the likelihood of you having those things, or at least minimize how much you have of those things. So yeah, I don't know if that answered your question. It was long-winded,
No,
at
yeah,
least.
it totally did. And on that end, that was news to me that you can see a PT during pregnancy, but then also another huge misconception is that pelvic PT is only for people that have had babies.
Oh
And that's
gosh,
not true,
yes.
right?
Nope. Nope. Not at all. So, I mean, I see a lot of moms, but I see people who have never had kids. I do not personally see men, but men also can have pelvic floor issues and need physical therapy for those issues. But yes, I think that it's a huge misconception that the only people who have pelvic floor issues are people who have had babies. That's not even close to true. I mean, we have, and there's also pediatric pelvic floor physical therapists. Again, that's not my specialty, but a great need for that with like issues with like bedwetting or constipation or potty training. A lot of those things we can work with a pelvic health PT that specializes in the pediatrics to be able to help our children not have these issues that we have as adults because we kind of set us up for these things in childhood.
Yeah, we were chatting about this on Instagram the other day or yesterday, whenever it was, about how I had made a post about things I wish I knew before age 29. And we were talking about, yeah, can you imagine having learned these things as a young girl?
Right.
Or if you're a guy, whatever, young boy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, and then having grown up with all of this knowledge, and now we have this whole new generation that we have an
Right.
opportunity to teach these things to. Like, literally today, my 5-year-old was pooping on the toilet. And I noticed, he's like trying to push it out. And I'm like, okay, just breathe. And like, here, put your feet on it. Like, try to, like,
Yeah.
relax. And he's like, why? And I was like, let me explain. But it's like, this is where it starts, like the new generation of like learning how to go to the bathroom and
Right.
learning how everything affects the pelvic floor. So yeah, all of that. And so switching gears a little bit, I wanted to talk about with you why it matters to find a PT that does the same sport as you, essentially. Like, I do CrossFit, so finding a PT that also does CrossFit, or why it might be an advantage to be able to find a
Yeah.
PT in the same world as you.
Yeah. So I think that finding a PT that speaks the same language as you, who gets you and your sport, is absolutely critical. I think that especially whenever it comes to CrossFit athletes, it's important to find a physical therapist who understands CrossFit, understands its demands, and who isn't just going to like tell you to stop doing CrossFit because
Right.
that's crappy advice. Um, I could have said a lot of other choice words, but that's not okay for us to just be like, no, you should just like stop doing that. Well, this is what I love to do, so I'm not going to stop doing it, but I'm also going to not respect you and not go back to you because you don't respect what I do. So I think that for especially for CrossFit athletes, it's super important to find a physical therapist who knows about CrossFit. At least doesn't have a um, poor understanding and poor outlook on CrossFit, because there are still quite a few PTs out there who would tell you all those CrossFitters, they just keep us in business, which
Right.
there's actually research to support that is not true. So anyway, I can step down off of that particular soapbox,
Yeah.
but I think that finding somebody who resonates with is able to speak the same language as you, be able to understand what you want to get back to and the demands of your sport, and understand, especially with CrossFit because it's so dynamic, be able to understand what it is that you're trying to achieve, because there's a lot of um, there's a lot of wiggle room and gray area of like how to progress some of the things that we progress back into. And it gets complicated, especially with CrossFit athletes, because it is so dynamic and it changes every day. And there's just a lot of things to like put back together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make a difference because I have had both experiences of going to a PT that was not necessarily versed in strength and conditioning, especially not CrossFit, and then coming to you where you're like, yeah, of course I understand what an AMRAP is and what WOD means, like,
Yeah.
because I had you come, I don't remember, a couple months ago,
Mm-hmm.
because I had an injury, like a pec injury, pec
Mm-hmm.
muscle injury, and you did some dry needling on me. And then I was like, okay, well, should I like not do this? Like, what do you think? You're like, no, you should go. You should go. And this is how you should approach it. And I was like, oh, like I mean, obviously I wanted to go, but I was like expecting half expecting you to be like, yeah, take a rest day, just let it rest. And you were like, no, go to the gym. And this is how I want you to adjust. And I was like, this is so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Like, this
that's,
is so
I
cool.
think that there's this misconception with injury that you should just like rest it or like take a rest day. And unfortunately, we do that a lot. And then what happens is you don't lose your fitness, but like you do take a step backwards if you don't go in and aren't continuing to exercise. You're not losing your fitness, but you are missing a training day. You are missing out on an opportunity to improve your mental health with exercise. You are missing a day that you get to go and exercise with your friends. And so for me, like keeping you in the gym is absolutely critical in my opinion. And so being able to like help modify things so then you aren't having to take days off. So you are able to go in and do something that looks like what your friends are doing. It may not be the exact same, but be able to do something that looks like it, to be able to continue to work on your fitness and be able to continue to progress overall, but still be respectful of the thing that you have going on. Now, that also applies to pregnancy and postpartum.
Yep.
And if we think of being pregnant or childbirth like being injured, which is really how we should think about it. If we think about it that way, and we think about like where we're still able to go and exercise, we just may need to make some modifications and trying to keep as close to the intended stimulus of the workout is that's something that we can achieve most of the time. There's almost always something that we can do that looks very, very similar to what everyone else is doing. You're still getting a great workout, you're still getting the intended stimulus, but we are being respectful of your body in that stage that you're in. So,
Yeah, absolutely. That was exactly going to be my next point of, yeah, this is very parallel with pregnancy and postpartum that you we could go all day long with misconceptions about exercise in the
oh,
perinatal
for sure.
world. But yeah, like you can keep doing the things that you like. It just looks different for different
Yep.
seasons.
Yep.
And so this is actually a really good segue because if you feel comfortable, you have a
Yep.
procedure coming up that will affect
Yep.
your fitness as well. Obviously, um, it's not pregnancy, it's not postpartum, but
Yep.
will you approach it the same way? So if you wanted to go ahead and just share what you have coming up, is it this month?
I don't have a date
Okay,
yet,
you don't
but
have a date yet, but
yeah.
if you want to go ahead and share what you have coming
Yeah.
up.
Absolutely. So I am having a prophylactic double mastectomy and reconstruction. Again, I don't have a date set, but I plan to have the double mastectomy and reconstruction done. So how am I approaching my fitness differently? So initially, I will probably be out of the gym for as short of amount of time as I can. um, so
Yeah.
I am expecting that I will be out of the gym for at least a few weeks. And then my intention would be to get back to being able to do lower body things and be able to get moving really as soon as I can. Um, I am expecting what my expectation is that it's going to probably be like 4 to 6 weeks before I can really start doing anything that looks CrossFit-y. uh,
Yeah.
it's going to be a lot of rehab early. So working, honestly, I'm not going to approach it too terribly differently than I would somebody who is postpartum because they're going to be taking flaps from my abdomen to reconstruct my breast. And
Got
so
it.
I am going to be doing quite a bit of like diaphragmatic breathing and working on reconnecting with my core and my pelvic floor because it's going to be a mess. Just plain and simple,
Right.
probably not going to be a good time.
Realistically.
Yeah. And also because of where the surgery is, I'm going to have to be conscious of like making sure that I'm getting those full breaths and things like that, my rib cage expansion. And then there will be the considerations for like my shoulder range of motion and things like that, getting back to like overhead activities. But I'm hoping my goal is that assuming that I have the surgery within the next month or two, that I would be able to get back to about 80% of where I am now by the end of the year. That's my goal. We will see. I think that it's also super important to give yourself some grace, um, especially like there's not a ton of information out there on rehab after a double mastectomy and reconstruction. I'm actually this is new. You may not even know this. I'm taking a course for breast cancer and rehabilitation
Amazing.
this next month. So yeah, I'm doing again. Kind of got this is something that has kind of fallen in my lap because there's not a ton of information out there. So I am just kind of approaching it with the background that I do know and with the information I'm going to be gathering from the courses that I'm taking. And we're just going to make it work. So,
Yeah. I think that this is going to be really, really fascinating because now you are doing the research. Like, obviously, you're not
yep,
doing it for research purposes, but you
yep,
are going to be pioneering something that is a need and is a hole that a bridge to be able to connect the dots for more women who may have gone through this that didn't get rehab that they needed. This is going to be something that you can now
right.
help others with. And yes, I love that you brought up your realistic timeline of return to sport to be at 80% by the end of the year. And that parallels so much again with postpartum, where you're like, yeah, I'm approaching
Yep,
it very similar to postpartum. And here's my system, here's my expectations, here's my timeline.
yep,
And that makes sense because you're going to have surgery and this is going to be an injury. And so you just like have this system, right? And I'm really
yep,
looking forward to see this journey for you. And I'm rooting
yep.
for you so much. And
Thanks.
then the next thought I have is like, wow, moms don't get that postpartum, do they? They don't
Nope.
get the, oh, well, you had this injury and this surgery, so here's your timeline, blah, blah, blah. They're just like,
Mhm.
6 weeks. Oh, look, you're cleared. Go right back. And now we can help moms know that there's people like you, there's people like me that are like, hey, let's sit down. Let's talk about timeline. Let's make a rehab plan. Let's find you a PT. Let's find you a fitness coach, whatever it is.
Yep.
And that should be the standard, right? We want that for
Oh,
all
absolutely.
moms. As much as you are planning for your upcoming surgery and your upcoming recovery, is how much we wish we could help moms plan for their postpartum and not have to just wing it or think that there's no
Yep.
resources, especially if they are having symptoms, if they are
Right.
feeling heaviness, if they are leaking and they're like, well, I don't know. And so
I just got to wait until I'm not pregnant to deal with
yeah,
this.
yeah, exactly. Or it's like, oh, I'm a mom now, so oh well, I
Yeah.
guess. But
This is the price I pay for having babies.
right. That'd be like you having this surgery and being in and having some symptom and being like, well, that's the price I pay for having this surgery. It's like that's not true. You have
Right.
ways to be able to overcome and get better and recover and change how you're doing things. So I just love
Yep.
these parallels between what you have coming up for you and the pre postnatal space. Like it's really cool. And PT as a whole, I feel like as I've gotten more experience in the field that I'm in and interacting with more PTs, the more I really did not realize how many people don't understand PT in general, not even just
So true.
pelvic floor,
So true.
just
Yeah.
PT and like what it's for. And they're like, well, I don't, I can just figure it out. And it's just like, yeah, but like I had a conversation with a friend the other day, actually. She was telling me that she just got a new fitness coach and he was telling her I cannot remember what she said, but there was something going on with her pelvis or something that made her need to squat a certain different way. I don't have any more details than that. And she's like, yeah, I
Sure.
just need to go see a chiropractor and blah blah blah. And I was like, I really think you should go see a PT. And she's like, what's a
Yeah.
PT? And I'm like, well, a physical therapist. Like, I really think you should see a
Yeah.
physical therapist for this problem. She's like, really? And it was like a shock. Like, I never would have thought. I'm like, yeah, they are trained to be
Yeah.
able to do exactly what you need help with. And even if it wasn't a pelvic PT, right? Just a general
Yeah.
PT. And so I was like, I just being, in the world that we are in, we don't think about it as much. Then
Mhm.
you go out in the world and you're like, wait, yeah, like this is not common.
No, there are so many people who have no idea that PTs do what we do, and then obviously a huge gap in people knowing what pelvic floor PTs do, um, and then there's also the just trying to like get over the like taboo of talking about pelvic health in and of
Yeah.
itself. Um, and I think that we're finally seeing a shift towards people being more open to talking about pelvic health and seeking out care for it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, even people that I see on a fairly regular basis at the gym, I feel like I'm having to like, well, like that's what I do. Like that's what I actually specialize in.
Hello.
Hello,
Right
I'm right
here.
here. My cards are literally at the front desk.
Your cards
Like,
are at the front desk in my gym too.
yeah. Oh, but yeah, it is so interesting and sad to me that we have all these people who don't know that we exist. And so that's that's why I am on social media, is because
Yeah.
that's where people consume their information. And so the more information that we put out there about pelvic health and the fact that these things aren't normal and this is something that we could do something about, the more information we put out there, the more people know about us, the more people are going to seek help. So
Right.
that's why I do what I do.
Yes. And we are fighting the good fight out here. It is not always easy, but
No,
it
it's not.
it is so worth it. And I'm
Yeah.
sure you have also had so many DMs or conversations where people say, "Hey, you posted this thing and I didn't know about it and it's really helped me and now
Yep.
I'm doing this." And so it's really important that we just keep getting the word out.
Yes.
And if as we wrap up, I wanted you to go ahead and tell everyone, if you are Texas local, what specific services you are currently offering that they can book with you.
Yep. So I do traditional physical therapy sessions where I am either mobile or in office. I do both pelvic health as well as orthopedic and sport related. I also offer recovery sessions, which are essentially just like or sorry, restore sessions. I renamed them. Um, restore sessions, which is basically just hands-on techniques, dry needling, cupping, to help with like a specific like ache or ouch that you're dealing with. That does not include any exercises. And then I also offer programming, which is basically like personal training, but with like the physical therapy side of things, with corrective exercises and things like that. And I think that I answered that question, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, you did great.
Am I missing
All
something?
your current
Oh,
offers.
I also offer virtual services as well.
Yes.
So I'm in person, in home, in the office, and virtual. So
Yes. Awesome. And where can we find you online and book with you and learn from you?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram and TikTok. My handle is at Strong Foundation PTTX. And then my website is strongfoundationpttx.com. And that has all of my contact information and booking information as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining me, Danyell.
Absolutely.
Check out her stuff. She posts a lot of really good educational content for free on Instagram. And any last things you'd like to add or comments?
I mean, ooh, gosh, kind of put me on the spot here. Yeah, just like don't accept less. Like if you don't feel good about the care that you're receiving, whether that's physical therapy, whether that is your care through like your OBGYN or personal trainer, do not accept anything less than what you deserve. If you don't think that you're getting what you need, then find somebody who resonates with you, because it's not fair for you to not receive the care that you deserve.
Thank you. That was perfect. Sorry to put you on the spot.
I was like, woo.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and we will catch you for another episode next time.